Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with the first colour combination request of the year, or as it's now called, colour combination challenge of the year. I paired up with Paula in the Netherlands, and we're now going to do a monthly challenge based on requests from our subscribers for colour combinations. So this month's colour combination was from a website or a YouTube channel called Dig Up Stuff. Don't know the person's true name, I just know it is Dig Up Stuff. And the colour combination was dark purple and turquoise. So the way it works is those two colours, the dark purple and the turquoise, are meant to be the featured colours. However, you can use black, you can use white, you can use metallic as well. And as far as I'm concerned, you can use any other colours that actually complement your overall design. However, the featured colours do need to be the two that are requested. So I don't always have the colours that people ask for. However, I've got Winsor & Newton Windsor Violet, which is a deep purple as far as I'm concerned. I pulled out another couple of purples and lavenders and lilacs because it's within the theme. And then as far as turquoise, I do have a paint called Turquoise, and I've also pulled out teal as well because there's going to be discussions about what is turquoise, what is teal, what is the difference. So that's basically it. I'm using a 12 by 12 as normal. It's a recycled one from a pad that I probably wouldn't use for anything else. And I've got my plastic scraper and I've got a ceramic mat. And that will just be something that I use to put paints on, and we may have to clean it up occasionally. So let's get started. The first thing I need to do is to put some sort of background on here, and just to cover this up, although if you look at this, it is quite pale to start with, and I've chosen this one because blue is part of purple anyway, but I thought I just want to put something on this page that's just going to give me a little background. So I've got some Arteza here, Arteza Lavender. I think that will be nice to put some hints of that in the background. I need to put some lighter colour in as well. So, okay, I've got some Old Ivory by Stamperia. I know it dries really quickly, so that'll be okay in this instance. I can get some out of the bottle. Let's see what other colour. I think I might put some pink into this as well, actually. Pink's not one of my favourite colours, but I am willing to go out on a limb and see if I can make it work. So my aim is literally to cover up this background, just give myself a bit of base colour just to work on. Now, I tend to work in horizontals and verticals. Other people work on diagonals. It's just the way my brain is wired. It's what I find more aesthetically pleasing to my eyes. So I'm going to make sure I don't go too dark too early on this. I've got a feeling that because of the colours involved, this may well become quite a dark, unfinished piece, but that's up to me to control. So, where can you find further details about these challenges if you're not part of the Facebook group in which it was announced in? PM Artist Studio, who you know I designed for, have a Facebook group called Makers of Mixed Media Artist and Art Group, or Art and Artist Group. If you find that group on Facebook, you would need to answer 2 questions to actually be allowed to join the group, but I can assure you now that they're really, really easy questions. Like, I won't tell you what they are because the questions are there to filter out people who might be trying to join the group for motives other than being supportive and caring and sharing, and basically what that group is all about. So I think I've pretty much successfully covered the snowflakes that were on this page. Now I'm using a loyalty card here. You could be using any plastic card. You could even be using a cardboard card if that worked for you. Just going to keep the surfaces clean for no other reason. Obviously with this mat here, which is my painty mat, I'm obviously not too concerned if things get dirty, but what happens is if paint gets dirty and dried, it then becomes crusty and I might end up dragging that into my piece of art. Okay, so I've got my base colours down there. I think I want to come in with a touch of white, just to put some lightness into this as well, because of course, as with everything mixed media, for me personally, it's all about the layers. So I'm just going to come in and put some over here. I will keep a little bit of excess here as well, because that's just the way I roll. I like to keep a bit of white on the go, because very often if your paint is too dark, if you immediately come in with some white, I can usually knock that colour back to a colour that's more acceptable. Okay, I think that's pretty. Yeah, that's fine. So because I'm using a credit card or a door key or a plastic scraper, you will find that it will dry reasonably quickly, but it'll depend on the quality of the cardstock you're using. You may have to be a little bit aware of how much you're putting onto it that's a wet paint. So, oops, that's the teal, that's not the one I wanted. Right, this is the Arteza Turquoise. So this is one of our featured colours. So I'll put some up there. I'm just going to come in and put a few streaks of this in, just so it's on the page somewhere. Now I do keep turning my page, and that's because I have a habit of working in one area and one area only, or I work in one direction only, which I like my pieces to be able to be multi-directional. So I'm just conscious of that, and I'm conscious that I do that. So put that down. So we've now got that. Let's put a little bit of the deep violet purple on here, and I want to put this on now because we're going to put the colours that are supposed to be the featured colours. I like to put them into the background as well as the foreground. So now this is quite a dominant colour, so I do have to be a little bit cautious of it. It's a dominant colour, but I don't want it to dominate the whole spread. Now I'm going to be using some stencils. I'm going to be using some mark making stuff as well. Now, because this patch here is this dense, I'm going to come in and put a bit of white over the top of that, just to knock it back, that whole push and pull thing, trying to get the different combinations of colours to unify in some way and become a coherent background. Right, let's just tidy that bit up a bit there so I'm not putting it all over the place. So I've got a good foundation there. I now need to start thinking about what sort of things do I want to put on it, what sort of shapes do I want, or am I just going to go with my gut, which is how I normally do this. Hopefully I'm not shaking this camera, just having a clean up here. So, right, let's have a think. So I've got this on here. Now I do know through experience that the complementary colour to purple is yellow. What's the complementary colour to turquoise, however? I'm just pulling in my colour wheel. Okay, so if I'm looking at turquoises about here, so we're looking somewhere around there will work for both colours. So I tend to use a colour wheel when I'm procrastinating, to be honest. What's the right colour? What shall I use? What shall I not use? Right, I'm going to come in, I'm going to bring in some of this. This is Arteza Sunflower Yellow. I'm going to come in with a little bit of that. I'm running low on this one. I tend to use this one a lot. So, right, and I want to use this in a way to put some texture in, visual texture. So I've got one of these non-slip mats here. So I'm going to spread the paint out a bit on my ceramic tile. I tend to use ceramic tiles instead of using palettes, because a ceramic tile, for a start, it was a really inexpensive purchase in my hardware store. It was in the reduced aisle, so I picked it up. In fact, I picked two of them up. And I've had them probably about 5 years now. So if you think about how much money I must have saved over the 5 years, I think that's a very good buy for me, to be honest. I like it because obviously it's not going to get stained. I can wash it. It's wonderful. It's a big palette for me to use stuff on, and I very often use it for other things too. Like I'll glue on it. I'll do stuff like that. So right, I'm just putting some pattern onto here, just to put something into this that's going to give me that little bit of visual interest. Now, I have seen a couple of the other people who have already done this challenge, and they've come up with some wonderful combinations of patterns and visual textures. So it always surprises me how much variation you can get out of basically, well, with this it's just two colours. I mean, whenever we do the colour combination challenge, you will always be able to add black, white and a metallic, because that means you can take the initial colours and change them from shades to tones, or I always get that wrong, but you know what I mean. Right, so I've got that on there. Let's put this to one side. Now I'm looking at this thinking, is it time to bring in something like a stencil? I'm not sure I want a stencil just yet. I'm going to want to put some more white into here, but more of a blocky sort of feel. And I'm thinking about using some of this bubble wrap. Now this bubble wrap is, some of it's been burst and some of it hasn't been burst. So what this will do is, yes, it'll add a bit of circles on there, but it'll also add some like crinkly texture. So again, can you see that? You can see that. You can see that just. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to smear the white acrylic paint out. If I was using a gel plate, I would just do this on the gel plate on my brayer. And I'm going to pick this up and look for areas that look as if they need lightening, or they need some visual distraction so that they're not pulling focus. I think that's going in the direction I want it to go in. I think a piece in there would be a good idea as well. And I think up here could do with just a little tiny bit, so just clean my plate off a bit and see if there's any left on there. There you go. Right, that's given me something interesting. I've still got paint on here, so I'm just going to smear that onto my ceramic tile so I can use it later. This can now go to one side. And I think we're at the point where I need to possibly grab myself a hairdryer and dry this off before I go on to the next colour and maybe the next texture. So I'm going to stop the video. It'll be 2 seconds for you. It'll probably be about 5 minutes for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through my collection of stencils and see if there's a stencil I'm really liking the look of that I think I want to add to this, and we'll see where it goes from there. So bear with me. 2 seconds for you and probably about 5 minutes for me, and I'll be back. So here I am back again. It's reasonably dry. It's not dry all the way through the core, but it's dry enough for me to actually be able to work on. I've also pulled out 2 stencils. I pulled out Wavy Windows Style 1 by PM Artist Studio because I like this one, but I don't tend to use it enough. I thought I want to use it here. And I pulled out one of my own stencils, and I pulled out Hopeless Harlequin. I pulled out the 5x7 version because I want detail, but I want small detail. So let's put these to one side. I will put a link in that description box, which is the gravy, or if you read the description, it says see more. In there, I will put a link to the stencils and products within PM Artist Studio if you're interested. Also, at the end of the video, I will share with you a little treat concerning that as well. Okay, right, so I want to use this one first. What I want to do is I want to come in. Now, we were allowed to use metallic, so I'm going to use this deep gold on this, and what I want to do is I want to come in and sponge areas of this on. So I've cut up some packaging sponge into little cubes, and that's how I'm going to put the design onto this. Now I don't want too much of this because I don't want it to dominate, but I do want a bit of this on here before we start looking at the final colours. So right, there isn't really an up and a down. So I'm just gonna, the one thing I do want to do is make sure I stay within horizontals and verticals, because as I said, for me that's something that I find more aesthetically pleasing. Now I'm not going to do the whole stencil. I just want to capture areas of it, and I'm kind of looking for areas that have got straight lines running through them. Not because I don't like the straight lines, but because the straight lines could lead the eye around the design in a way in which I don't want it to. So I'm just going to come in and put a few patches here and there around the entire piece just to break it up a bit, just to add a little bit of that metallic in. See, it's just enough. I come in maybe this way on. So I don't mind that the rectangles are going in the opposite direction to the others. It's more about horizontal and vertical for me. I just find that putting a diagonal for me into a design means one of two things. The diagonal either leads you out of the design or it leads you through the design, and unless you actually plan where it's going to be in the design, then you could run into some problems, because it'll just lead your eye around a piece of artwork in a manner maybe you don't want to be taken. So, right. There you go. That's just enough, just to put a little something in here. Actually, I think I want to put some down here as well. I've got a little bit on my sponge I can just add in down here, just because that looks like it needs something along here as well. There's quite an expanse of white along there, which I am not finding pleasing. I want to make sure I just break that up slightly. Okay, right. This can go into a bath of water if you need to keep your stencils dry, clean. I'm just putting it to one side and I'll sort it out later. So right, so I've got all of the elements on here. I've got my teal, not my teal, my turquoise, I've got my metallic, I've got my deep purple on here. I do want to add some more stuff to this, however. I now want to come in and I want to add white onto this, and then after I put the white on, I then want to bring back the colours from the background to the foreground. So I'm going to put down a little more white paint, and I want to come in now, and I think I'm going to follow this sort of grid idea around. I'll just spread this paint out a bit. And I'm going to use one of my favourite bits of equipment, which is this mat, this rubber mat. And I'm just going to pick up bits of the white, and I'm going to focus in areas where I think it needs some distraction. Like down here is quite dark for me, so I think I want to come in here and put this on. I'm not trying to do four corners, that would be a mistake, but like by here is quite barren at the moment. And I'm back to this line down the side here, and I would really like to do something more with that. So let's just see if I can put something across there. So there you go. As you can see, I've now put some of that in. I'm happy with that. I do want to come in now, and I've got a little bit of white left over on. It's probably just out of shot. See that little bit of white there? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, pick that up on a sponge, and just basically give myself some paler areas within the design to let the eye rest. Now we know I'm not trying to cover stuff up, because I'm going to be reintroducing the deep purple and the turquoise into the upper layers. So this is purely an exercise of giving the eye some resting places, because for me it's important to not overwhelm the senses, and this is quite a busy background. Now if you do use this sponging method, you can always throw these little bits of sponge into a bowl of water, give them a few squeezes out, and then what you'll end up with is you'll have them clean for the next time. It depends on whether I'm in the mood or not. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I just throw them out because they're so inexpensive. And in fact, this whole thing was a bit of free packaging I got, so I know I don't worry too much. But normally I would buy my sponges from like a dollar store or a pound store, where I could purchase them, and I would normally buy like 2 or 3 little baby sponges or car wash sponges. I'm hoping the camera's picking all this up, because we've got a bit of a storm happening here, and it's a bit dark and overcast, I must admit. Right, I think I need to dry this, and then we'll be coming in and we'll look at using that other stencil, and we're not far off, to be honest, guys. not far at all. So I'll pause you in for 2 seconds and then I'll be back. So here we are back again, dry almost to the core. I mean, it's not coming off my hands, and that's all that really matters, because I don't really want to lay a stencil on the top of it and then that stencil pulls it up. Now I'm using my own design, which is the best way to show you, probably that way, which is called Hopeless Harlequin. Comes in 3 different sizes. I just want small details, so I'm pretty much only going to be using the top half. I don't want the tumble down diamonds. I want them to be quite uniform. Now I'm going to come in, and where's my turquoise? I'm going to use the turquoise, and I'm also going to use a bit of that teal, dark teal, purely because I want to make sure I've got a mixture of contrasting colours, if that's the right word, probably not the right word. I've got the bit of sponge I had white on it, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to come down and I'm going to dab in both of them at the same time and then work my way over areas of this. And what that will do, it will give the turquoise and the teal will have a bit of a mix happening to them. So that means that I'll have a little bit of shading in the design. There you go, just enough. And I'm going to try and do overlapping between the areas that I sponged and the areas that are gold, so that it's unifying those two. And also because I'm randomly picking up the dark and the light, it does mean that there'll be different variations across the whole thing. I am also only keeping it in this orientation because I don't want diamonds going in different directions. So I'm going to do a little bit up this edge here, because this is part of that edge that I didn't like. I think I also want to do a little bit down by here, just to take in that corner. Now I'm not putting a lot of paint on my sponge, because that way I'll get a nice clean image. I won't get bits that are going to be oozing underneath. So a little bit up here, maybe a little bit of the darker up here. Just working with kind of organic sweeping shapes. I'm not trying to do any particular shapes. I'm just doing areas. That's stuck down, there you go. So as you can see, we now have a good pattern going on here. There's quite a lot on that. I'm going to put this to one side. So right, I want to turn my ceramic plate around now, purely because I want a cleaner area. Because I'm going to come in again with some white now. So let's get my fingers a bit cleaned up and get that off there. What I want to do is we've got the turquoise in here. We can now see it. I'm not worried about that. That's good. I'm now going to reach for some small bubble wrap. So here we are. Now it's bubble wrap that I've used umpteen times before, which means that it could transfer some dried paint that's already on the bubble wrap onto here. That doesn't matter to me because I'm not using big areas of it. I'm literally just creating some visual texture. I'm just going to come in, pop this down. I think by there could do with a touch of something. See, it's just a little area of interest, possibly down that edge there that's lacking some interest. A bit along that top edge could do with something. Build up another layer there. I think that's okay. A little bit over there. I don't know why I put things where I put them. I just follow my instincts when I put them down. So a lot of you do ask me, oh, where do you know where to put stuff and how do you know what colour to reach for? I'm a great believer in the more you do art, the more you know how to do art. And I do this a lot, and it's almost become second nature now, which I find very interesting. Right, I've got that on there. I've got the turquoise is quite visible. I've still got the purple to go on here. I'm going to use a piece of corrugated card here, and I'm going to put some lines onto this design. And then I'm going to take a look at it, because I haven't used black yet. but it's not a required element, but it may be something I think I want to use. I usually use black as something that adds an accent and gives me a real drama, but that may be achieved by what I'm about to do with this deep purple. So I'm just pressing it down onto this piece of corrugated cardboard. Now I don't want the corrugated cardboard overlapping itself. I don't mind it going in different directions, but if I overlap it, it will then become checkerboard, and I don't want any more shapes, should we say, than I've already got on here. Let's put a little bit in there, and a little bit along the edge if I can get it. I feel this down here needs a little bit as well. Sorry, having a thoughtful moment. And I think a little bit by there would be a good idea. So right, that's all done. Don't mind that being yellow in the middle, that's fine. We're now done with this. So these are basically, other than the two stencils we've used, we're just using found items like bubble wrap is packaging. I'm using sponges, which again was packaging for me this time. I'm using, what else did I use? Bubble wrap. I'm using a non-slip mat, which was something you've probably got in the house already. Right. I think, I'm looking at this. Now it's going to dry slightly lighter. I know it's going to dry slightly lighter. I want to come back in with more white. And what I want, any paint left on here, by the way, when I turn the camera off, I will probably use it on things like, I've got some postcards and ATCs on the go. I'm going to use this. Now this is the inside of a roll of some sort. I don't know whether it had tape or something on it. And I'm just going to come in and add the odd circle onto this. Not too many of them, because there's something else I want to do as well. But it might just unify the whole design. I think, as I'm about to say that's enough, what do? I add another one. Okay, I think that's okay. I want to turn this slightly because this I keep ignoring. Now, it's interesting to me sometimes with the way people work on things. Some people will focus on the middle and work and forget the edges. Some people work around the edges and forget the middle. I am the latter. I tend to work around the edges and forget about the middle. So I'm trying to rectify that in my work. Right, I do want some black. I want to add some real drama to this. That was the other colour that I could use. So where am I going to put it? Just put it there on the plate. Don't need a lot of this. Do not need to overpower this. So I just spread it out slightly. And then I've got a tape roll here. This was from duct tape. And I'm just going to put a couple of larger circles into this. I like to have designs going off the page as well. And I think we're done. Yes, put the tape down, Gary. Right, give me a second, well, two actually. I'm going to clear the decks off so that I've got a bit more space around me. I'm going to dry this off and then we'll take a look at it and see whether we think it's done. I think it's done, and I think we've met the brief, because the brief was deep purple. I've got deep purple and turquoise, and we've definitely got turquoise and teal in there. We were told we could use a metallic. We've got the gold in there, and we were told we could use black and white. I've got black and white as well. So me, that's a really nice dramatic piece, and I like it. So I'm very happy with that. That dried quite, didn't go as pale as I thought it would, which is great because I like the drama of this. I'm hoping that it looks the way it looks to me in real life through the screen, because it's really dark outside and I film via natural daylight. So maybe the thumbnail, I will share an image of this as well. I'll put it onto my Pinterest board. There will be a Pinterest board called what's it called, color combination requests. I think there's a Pinterest board under my name where I post a picture of the final ones anyway. So most of the things on here were done with found items. The two stencils I used was Wavy Windows Style 1 and my own stencil, which is Hopeless Harlequin. I used a 5x7 because I wanted that delicate little detail. And then that extra thing I was telling you about, I will put the link to PM Artist Studio, to their stencils page. There's a link within that page to anything I've designed. So it'd be lovely if you wanted to take a look at the stuff I've designed as well. And if you do purchase anything from them for over $30, if you type Ceri Fan 10 into the promotional code box at checkout, it will give you an extra 10%. So that's good, 10% off an order, which may help with your postage and packaging, but it is on orders over $30. So thank you guys. There'll be one of these every month now, obviously different colour combinations. So I'm Ceri the Crafter, that's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time, goodbye now.